Hi there, are you somebody who has plantar fasciitis and you've been given stretches to do, but you want to know how is it best for me to do these? Well, if so, friend, then this video is for you. Hi there, my name is Morgan Risden and I'm the creator of Center Studio, where I teach people skills to feel more comfortable more often. Now, before we get started, friend, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also that notification bell. That way, anytime I make a video like this, you'll know. Now, today's video is part 2 of a 3-part series. So I'm looking at plantar fasciitis. In that first video, I talked about what is it, what are some of the reasons why maybe it's here, what are the things that you can immediately do to get a little bit of relief. And then today I wanted to focus on the stretches that you could do to help get that mobility back, to help get that comfort level that you're seeking. And then the third video, I'm going to be looking at walking and how it relates to plantar fasciitis. Okay, so as we're going into these videos, I want you to keep in mind I'm an Alexander Technique teacher, so I'm not a healthcare professional. All the advice I'm giving you today is based on my experience teaching, my experience working with people who have plantar fasciitis, and knowing that all of these exercises and stretches, when you keep these ideas in mind that I'm going to be talking about today with you, can really help you avoid injury and pain in other areas, and also can hopefully get you being more effective, right, in doing the stretches in a way that's going to get you the maximum benefits, okay? The other thing I'm going to suggest that you keep in mind is that it's important when you can consider, how do I feel before, during, and after each stretch, okay? So this means, am I feeling before? Do I feel tight in this area? Do I feel loose? Am I breathing as I'm doing it? Do I feel like this is a stretch I'm enjoying? And then at the end, noticing if it made any difference, right? Do I feel like this worked? Do I feel better? Do I feel sore? Do I feel tender, right? The more information that you can pay attention to and that you can sort of gather as you're doing the stretches, the easier it's going to be for you to decide which ones are beneficial for you and which ones you could probably do without, okay? So hopefully you'll keep that in mind as we move forward. This exercise is very common for physical therapists or podiatrists to refer to individuals who are experiencing any kind of feet problems. And I find that just intuitively, if you've got feet problems, chances are you're going to do something like this without anybody telling you. And that's where you bring the foot over and you sort of stretch out the bottom of that foot by pulling on your toes to stretch the bottom of the sole of your foot, right? And chances are, if you're somebody who has a lot of foot pain, or if you lack flexibility, you might find yourself in a situation where you're so focused on your foot, you're like, I gotta get that foot stretched at the bottom. And you see what I've done to my whole body in an attempt to stretch out the bottom of my foot. I've sacrificed what we would call the use of my body because I'm just trying to stretch that bottom of my foot. So, of course, looking at it from the lens of an Alexander Technique teacher, we'd say first you want to make sure you're sitting on your sit bones. So I'm not behind my tailbone, I'm not slumping, I'm really nice and tall in my spine, and then I bring my foot over. So I cross one foot over the other, and then from here, I would check in with my neck muscles. Are my neck muscles relaxed? Could I easily move my head? Are my shoulders coming up? That sort of thing. So you check in with parts of your body to see, am I released and loose, or are there parts of me that are tight? Okay? Then think about what's going to move my feet. So I need to move my toes to get that dorsal flexion up, and what's going to do that? Is it going to be my shoulders? No. We would say it's going to be your fingertips, right? So we say fingertips lengthen, and then I always think about just bending them here at the knuckles, that boop, I'm going to bend them like so. So if I place the fingers here, the thumb is on the other side, it kind of like, makes this sort of shape. And then I slowly close and I bring the toes back by just letting my fingertips lengthen in this direction. And already I feel a stretch at the bottom, but notice my arm is relaxed and loose. My shoulder's not up to my ears. It's nice and open. And I'm breathing, right? So you can kind of test it by moving your head around. Are my neck muscles relaxed and could I move my neck? Or does it feel tight? If so, let it go. And you just check in with other parts of your body as you continue to let those fingertips pull those toes and the bottom of the balls of your feet up towards your leg. So you feel that stretch along the bottom of your plantar. And then of course you would do the other side, okay? And you'd start all over. Am I my sit bones? Are my, are my neck muscles relaxed? Is my head on top of my spine? Are my shoulders free? So everything is relaxed before I do this activity. And I guess in some ways you think about all parts of your body equally as you think about the foot. And that's kind of counterintuitive because you're doing a foot stretch. But in Alexander technique, the whole body is active in this activity. Doesn't mean all the muscles are needed, but if I think about keeping my body relaxed and free, then again, I can just simply move my fingers. I can squeeze my fingers together, pull there at the toes to bring it closer to my lower leg, and stretch out the bottom of that foot, right, to get that plantar fascia nice and elongated. And then I would let that go. And of course, hopefully this goes without saying, if you do, so many reps on one side, you'd want to do them equally on the other side. So whatever duration and however many reps you do, let's be equal on both sides of our body. Now, this stretch that I'm going to be showing you is not necessarily a foot stretch. It's more of a hip flexor stretch. However, because we're dealing with plantar fasciitis and I'm an Alexander technique teacher, we always look at the whole, right? So thinking about the body as pieces and parts that work together in tandem, and when they're working well, everything is being efficient and used properly. And when there's misuse, sometimes we can be compensating because of areas that are tight or areas that are not as free and flexible. So I want to talk about the hip flexors just because I know that oftentimes people who have feet problems also have a lot of tension in their hips. So this exercise I'm going to show you again, just like the others, you're going to be thinking about, am I on my sit bones? My spine is nice and long. Are my neck muscles relaxed? Can I move my head at the top of my spine? That sort of thing. So again, thinking about the whole, even though we're focusing on something that's down here. Okay, and the first thing you're going to do is it's kind of a three-part stretch. The first thing you're just going to do is press this knee down towards the floor. Now, if you're somebody who has less flexibility, you might find, whoa, Morgan, my leg doesn't go like that. That's okay, friend. That just means you're a little bit tighter in your hips, okay? So you start wherever you're comfortable and go to a place where you feel the stretch. So in my case, I don't necessarily feel the stretch until about here. So from here, then I would begin pushing down towards the ground with my hand. Now, am I pushing with my shoulder? No. Am I pushing with my forearms or my elbow? No. I'm pushing with my hand. So I simply send my hand nice and relaxed, fingers are loose, all the way down towards the ground. And then I feel the stretch on the bottom and on the tops of my thighs, and you really can feel it here at the center of your hip joint as well. So you would hold that, and then you might release. And then again, you would do it again. You'd push down towards the ground and you check in with the rest of your body, similar to all the other exercises. Are my neck muscles free? Are my shoulders creeping up? Or can I let them rest, right? So you're checking in with other parts of your body, even though you're doing a stretch down here, okay? After you've done that, if you find that that's a pretty easy one for you, you can move one step in and you can say, okay, let me try folding over. Now this is where it gets tricky for me personally. I have less flexibility. So I always say, again, go with what's comfortable for you. So we don't want to make this stretch painful. We want to make it a stretch. So you'll feel it, but you don't want to hurt yourself. So I feel like sometimes when people bend over this way, that's when they start to kind of crunch together and they start to kind of get desperate to get towards their, like, I'm going to get my face towards my leg. Who cares? You just want the stretch. So in my case, I can kind of come down about here when I feel, for me, it's actually a deep stretch. So you want to bring yourself, and I just really hinged at my hip joints forward, making sure that I'm not compromising the back of my spine, meaning I'm not rounding over, scrunching up my neck, but instead I'm elongating, keeping my neck muscles nice and loose there at the top of my spine. So I can move my head, everything is relaxed, and I'm still breathing, and then I would bring myself closer. And in this case, I don't even use my hands really that much. I just bend over, and if anything, I'm relaxed, I check in, and then I come up. If that one's comfortable for you and you want to go one step further, you could hinge, same way as before, but towards your foot. So now you're kind of going at a diagonal. So from your right hip to your right leg that's on your left leg here, you're going to come and pull over. And then this, again, same thing applies. Are my neck muscles relaxed? Are my shoulders loose? My hands loose? Am I breathing? And you bring yourself closer. You can see I'm not that flexible here. and then you'd feel the stretch. And again, not caring so much about, am I able to get myself all the way over, but am I keeping my spine elongated so that I do the stretch properly? Okay, because you don't want to end up with neck and shoulder problems as a result of doing these stretches to help alleviate your foot pain. Okay, and hopefully when you do this stretch, you can begin to feel relief almost immediately. Now, in my case, I don't have feet pain. However, already the foot that I stretched compared to the foot that I didn't feels a lot more wide and long on the floor. So it doesn't feel as chunky. It doesn't feel like one solid thing. It feels a little bit more mobile and flexible. So it's an interesting exploration. And again, pay attention to how do I feel before, during, and then after. And I think it's really a nice moment before you move to the other side to pay attention to, like, what do I notice in the foot that didn't do that versus the foot that did? Okay, because that's going to give you really valuable information about whether or not a stretch is helping you and seems to be something that you might want to continue exploring. Okay? Now here I'm going to show you 2 simple wall stretches that are often recommended. Oftentimes runners will do these wall stretches, and you've seen this before where people come up against the wall and they sort of lunge back. Things that you want to keep in mind is that you want your feet always to be parallel to one another and in the direction of the wall that you're going to be holding yourself up from. So I always like to use what's around me. For example, I've got these wood planks on my floor, so that's a good reference for myself to know where am I. And if you are not as flexible, you can come a little bit closer to the wall. And the idea is that you're keeping your foot straight behind you. So that back leg is nice and straight, and you're going to lower yourself closer towards the wall. So you get yourself closer to the wall by letting your elbows away. Okay, so in Alexander technique, I don't have to tighten my hands, my wrists are nice and free. I'm just thinking that my elbows are slightly coming apart from one another. That brings me closer to the wall. And of course, I let my knee in front bend to accommodate, right? So then I also check in, are my neck muscles free? Could I move my head easily? And I think about sending that heel in the back down towards the ground. So I'm a little bit more flexible, so I could even take a further stretch out. This just depends on how you feel. But again, you just want to make sure that you're keeping that foot in alignment and that you have your hands here and you lower yourself in this direction. So bending that knee in front, and you feel that sort of stretch all the way to the back where your heel is going into the ground. We think opposition. So my head goes up. My head doesn't go into my hands and my shoulders don't come up, but I allow my neck muscles to relax so my head is poised on the top of my spine, and I can bring myself into that deeper stretch by really thinking about my heel coming down into the ground, away from my head that goes towards the sky. So it's sort of an oppositional thought, right? The other thing you could do is you could do a stretch here which allows you to emphasize the larger of the calf muscles. So your calf muscles there's 3 parts. There's the gastroc, the soleus, and your Achilles tendon, and they all work together to sort of create what we call our calves. But that larger, bulkier part of your calf, the gastric, that muscle, you can go ahead and you can bend your knee slightly in this position to go ahead and get that stretch here for that bulkier part of your calf. And again, notice I could kind of take my hands away, so I'm not leaning into the wall. I'm thinking up and out. Now, sometimes people might talk about dropping the tail, like tucking it. I just think of letting my tailbone have a weight. I think about widening at the base of my torso. And again, my shoulders are relaxed, my neck is free, and I'm breathing. Or that's the hope, right? And then you feel that stretch. Now, I would suggest also avoiding bouncing. So this is a more static stretch. And if you're somebody who's tried this in the past, maybe you can also consider prolonging it. So I've read things that say if you prolong the stretch for as much as even 2 minutes, right, maybe working your way up to that, you'll find that those are better results. Now, this next stretch is very common again. It's with the use of a stair or a ledge. Sometimes you could even hear people talking about off the side of a stool. But the idea is that you have your heels just hanging off of the stair essentially, and then you press down. So your toes, the balls of your feet are on the stair, but then you're allowing yourself to stretch down below, and then you bring them up to relax the calves. here at the stair height, and then you go ahead and lower again. Now, as an Alexander Technique teacher, if I'm doing this, I'm again paying attention to my neck muscles. Are my neck muscles free? Is my head poised on the top of my spine? Am I coming forward or leaning back away? So that I'm keeping myself nice and loose in the rest of my body and just really isolating the stretch to the back of that calf and then coming up. Now, there's also a study recently that was done that talks about using a stair similarly, but with the use of a towel. So this allows you to get maximum dorsiflexion here when you place your feet on the edge. And as a beginner, you might start with both of your feet here on the towel, and then you would rise up above. So you go ahead and you allow yourself to come up, holding for 3 seconds, and then coming down. And then again, repeating up 3 seconds, and then down, so that you're again getting that stretch at the back of the calf. They then suggest going to just one leg. So you would have one leg being the one that is flexing up, and then it's relaxing all the way down, and coming up, and coming all the way down. Now, if I'm somebody who's worried about balance, I want to make sure I'm not gripping anything that's supporting me, whether it's a chair in front of you or stairs in this case. I don't want to be gripping and coming forward. I want to be loose and available. This is just for security and stability to come up and come down. And again, am I allowing my spine to lengthen? Tailbone dropping behind me, neither pushing forward or back, but everything is relaxed and free. And of course, I'm breathing, right? Now, in this particular study, they suggest adding weight in the form of a book bag that then you slowly fill up with books, okay? So it becomes increasingly more difficult, and the idea is that you're strengthening then those muscles to allow you to get a better stretch. Now, I'll link below to that study so that you can refer to that if you're interested. And what I would say is that if you are gonna do that, if you're adding books in the form of a backpack, right, you're adding that weight, let's be mindful that you're not holding the book bag with your neck and your shoulders. The book bag hangs from you. So even if I had weight here, if it becomes more difficult, that's the purpose of the stretch, right? That's the purpose of the exercise. However, I want to be mindful that I'm not overusing my shoulders, my neck, all of those muscles up here that tend to want to help hold a book bag up. And instead, I just let that book bag be heavy, friend, because it's got a whole bunch of books. But that way it'll hang at the back of my body, and I just let it drop down into the floor. You know, you don't want to fight gravity. So one other exercise that oftentimes people are doing for plantar fasciitis is they'll put their toes up on the wall, and then they'll keep that leg that's on the wall nice and straight as they begin to bend the back leg, right? And if they want to get a deeper stretch, then they can start to kind of peel that heel off of the other foot, and it puts more pressure stretching the bottom of that arch on the foot that's against the wall. So if you're going to be doing this exercise, friend, I want you to consider, how am I using the wall, okay? And what I mean by that is, am I pushing into it? Am I pulling away from it? I, as an Alexander teacher, would think, oh, this wall is tall, just like my spine. So I would think up with the wall. Instead of thinking I have to push in it or push away, I would think my hands come to the wall, okay? They're nice and relaxed, my wrists are free, my elbows are loose, my shoulders relaxed, right? And I'm neither pushing nor pulling, but instead I think I'm sending my spine up in the same direction as the wall, okay? As I want to increase that stretch, I pick up the heel from that back foot, and I feel more a stretch at the bottom of this foot that's along the wall here, right? And as I do that, I check in. Are my neck muscles free? Are my shoulders relaxed? As we increase the stretch as far as difficulty is concerned, we are more prone to tightening, to tensing muscles that really have no business tightening. So I'm going to suggest that you be very mindful when you embark on doing these kinds of stretches, that if it gets increasingly more difficult, your chances of tightening in places that don't really need to be tightening are more likely. So the more that you feel, let's say I'm in the stretch and I'm increasing that stretch by lifting up the back foot more and more and more, and I start to feel my shoulders go, okay, peel back, lower that heel a little bit. Okay, it's not as deep of a stretch, but I'm not compromising my neck, my shoulders, the rest of my body, right? So that you're always including your whole self in all of your stretches and in all of the exercises that you do. because it's very common when we get something that's more difficult that other parts of our body try to help us out, and we end up compensating, and in some cases even injuring ourselves in places that weren't supposed to be tightening in the first place. As you can see, there's lots of different stretches that you can give a try on your own. Maybe you've seen some of these before, maybe some are new, but the idea is, can you keep these things in mind so that the stretches you're doing you can be more efficient and more effective at? Again, these are all given to you from an Alexander Technique teacher's perspective, but ultimately it's going to be your observations, the awareness that you bring to these stretches to decide what works, right? So remember to pay attention to, how do I feel before, how do I feel during and after all of these stretches, so that you can weed out the ones that you don't feel like are very effective, and then you can really focus your attention on improving the ones that you feel benefit you. Okay, I hope that you find this video very helpful, and if so, I would love if you would subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Okay, until next time, take care. Ciao.